Hey guys, Bix Weir with roadtoruta.com. Breaking news: the iPhone spying conspiracy. Um, I've been talking about this for a while. It all goes back to the early Road to Ruta days of the invention of computers and the implementation of secret spying software within all types of computers, even machines that use computers. And I'm going to go through real quick what the announcement is and then why it matters. The announcement's coming from WikiLeaks that says that pretty much all iPhones have been embedded with spying bugs, spying technology, so that the US government and the CIA can spy on every single human being on Earth who has an iPhone. And it doesn't just cover the voice, it covers video, it covers email within the iPhone, all that stuff. And they can do it. It is completely illegal. It is unconstitutional. It was done in secret. But it goes back decades. This is not a new thing. The embedding of computer technology to spy and to create bugs on a whim from the CIA goes all the way back to the invention of computers. Who invented the software and who was in charge of implementing that software, which I have covered in the Road to Ruta. So I'm going to go over a quick analysis of where this embedded iPhone spying software came from. And those of you who have been on the Road to Ruta know exactly what I'm talking about. But listen to this part of a discussion I had about the origins of the computers that rigged the markets, and you'll see exactly where this came from and who implemented it. I interjected a couple comments, but this is the full analysis of what's really going on in this comic. And truthfully, you have to read it 10 times to get to where I have gotten, but I'm going to walk you through how I got there so that you know that I'm not just making this stuff up. I'm going to link up all this important information so you can understand exactly what the Fed is trying to say here. Let's start with the name Ruta. Where did the name Ruta come from? I had no idea. I had never heard of it before. Um, I did a lot of internet searches just because it was such an odd name. Finally found some information going back into the 1970s computer manuals. Very interesting. In computer programming languages, root refers to the top level directory of a file system. The word is derived from a tree root since it represents the starting point of a hierarchical tree structure. Root A in financial computing would be the very first top level directory. And here's kind of a graphic that I found in an old IBM manual from the 70s on how to program computers. This was one of the first banking programs. Now I'm going to put together the Ruta-Greenspan connection and show you why it's my contention that Ruta is representative of Alan Greenspan. The term Root A was developed in the first shareable computer programming language called BASIC, which was invented by John Kemeny. John Kemeny was a childhood friend of Alan Greenspan's in the early 1960s. In the 1960s, Alan Greenspan wrote the very first financial computer programs that developed into our current electronic monetary system. Most people have no idea that Greenspan was a computer geek in the 60s and had been programming his entire life. On page 204 of his book, The Age of Turbulence, Greenspan blames himself for the Y2K problem because he used only 2 digits to represent the year instead of 4 digits in his original monetary programs. Famed economist Pierre-Andre Reinfret said of Greenspan's company in the 1960s, they specialize in what is known as econometric model system of forecasting, which is forecasting by mathematical equations or modeling. I have a mental image of Alan at forums poring over his computer runs to evaluate whatever someone said and flipping the pages looking up numbers. I also remember him droning on reading the numbers off the spreadsheets. Greenspan was an Ayn Rand devotee and staunch gold bug, arguing for the return of a gold standard with his seminal paper Gold and Economic Freedom, published in 1966. So you have Greenspan, who was knee-deep in computers, a gigantic gold bug from the 1960s, and he absolutely wanted to go back to a gold standard back in the 60s and even the 70s. And Alan Greenspan's mentor, the guy who he followed, like a puppy dog, was Fed Chairman Arthur Burns. Arthur Burns wanted to return to a gold standard as well in his early career, only to flip-flop in the 70s, helping drive inflation through the roof. And everybody was like, what is going on with Arthur Burns? He's printing money like it's going out of style. This is more of the plan that these guys concocted. So that's kind of where I started getting the idea that it might be Greenspan, and the relationship between the grandmother, Ruta's grandmother, and Ruta. It fit that Greenspan-Burns relationship to a T. So I get a lot of questions on why was Greenspan really a computer geek? And to be a computer geek in the 1960s, you're amongst a handful of people who even know what a computer is. You got to remember this stuff. First of all, having started programming in the early 1960s, Alan Greenspan was decades ahead of any programmer trying to game the financial markets in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. He had decades of experience of how to rig the markets. He created the financial markets. And the big question to me was, why would Greenspan ever stop programming, given that computer programs are the most powerful tool in modern day economics? He never stopped programming. He can program continually throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. He programs today. Computer programmers don't just stop when their little method is working. They keep it going. Now, through his mentor, Arthur Burns at the Fed, Greenspan had full access to the fastest computers in the world all the way back into the 1960s. It is rumored that the U.S. government has computers many, many, many times faster than the faster computers we think we have today. And they've had them since the 60s and 70s. They're like leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else as far as computer power, but they don't want to give out that secret because they use it to their advantage. As head of the Council of Economic Advisors to President Ford, Greenspan had the authority to rig any market he wanted via computer trading programs. The authority to rig markets comes from the 1934 Gold Reserve Act, which authorized the participation in any market. And the U.S. Treasury runs it out of the U.S. Fed using the Exchange Stabilization Fund money. That can be proven very easily, but that is where Greenspan got the power and authority to implement his computer trading models. And computer trading programs gave him the power to prolong and extend the unbacked fiat system for as long as they wanted by controlling the prices of all market-traded financial instruments, including gold, silver, oil, and the U.S. dollar. Now remember, the only reason that the unbacked fiat currency has lasted as long as it has, which is since we went off the gold standard in 1971, is because the prices of commodities have been kept in check. And the only way they were kept in check is through the computer trading programs invented by Greenspan and implemented by Greenspan. So my belief is a decision was made in the 1960s to run the unbacked fiat system to infinity, sucking up all the benefits of fiat money before imploding the entire electronic debt bubble. And there's proof of that in this comic that I will show you. But back to Greenspan, and this is kind of my final proof, and I found this in the archives, that Greenspan was knee-deep in the computer world and railing against the government. This is a 1984 commercial of Greenspan trying to sell the Apple IIc computers.
The Apple IIc and money.
People in high places are always asking me, Alan, where does the money go? If you wonder the same thing, I suggest an Apple IIc, an Apple modem. Then you can call up your bank and see how much money you have. You can even pay off your bills automatically. If you have any money left over, congratulations. You're doing better than the government is.
The Apple IIc. There's no telling how far it can take you.
Don't you just love that? And think, when Greenspan did that commercial, he had over 20 years of computer programming experience. How many other people were there still, probably in the late 70s, early 80s, who were expert computer programmers? Handful. That's it. There wasn't a lot. Not like today. Okay, moving on from Greenspan, who is this guy, Stephen DeVoe, the adapter of the comic? Um, I did a lot of research into him. Some of it was very hard to find because when he was working secretly at the Fed, there's not much information available. But I did find out he served in the U.S. military intelligence in the 1960s. He was a computer programmer in the 1970s when there were very few. He is internationally recognized as expert on project implementation. Now, what is a bigger project than orchestrating this road to Ruta theory of controlling the markets and controlling the monetary system with computer programs? That's about as big a project as you can imagine. He worked at the Boston Fed in the mid 70s through the mid 80s. Now, this is interesting. He's best friends with a legal professor, Harold J. Sullivan, who wrote Civil Rights and Liberties. The highest award for a U.S. District Attorney is the Harold J. Sullivan Award. I have yet to find anything on who that award was named for other than this guy, Harold J. Sutherland, who is knee-deep. Remember, all this stuff had to be done in secret because if they did it and the bad guys knew, then they would have been taken out. Like, they took out Kennedy and so many other people before him. So they're doing all this market rigging secretly, and that's why there's no information on who the Harold J. Sullivan Award is named after. So Harold J. Sullivan, or Stephen DeVoe's mentor was George Goodwin Jr., who wrote this book called Little Legislatures, Committees of Congress about the Power and Autonomy of Subcommittees in Congress. Basically all about how to do things in government and keep them secret. So Stephen DeVoe was a consultant to the Department of Defense and the U.S. Air Force. This is a guy who, supposedly only adapted this comic book. He implemented computer programs at various banks in the mid-1980s. After he was working as the Fed, market rigger with computer programs, he went over to the banks and implemented computer programs in the banking system to control everything. He's all about project implementation, and it's all about control. And then he implemented programs at IBM. A lot of people are talking about that Stuxnet virus that is supposedly implemented, and somebody has the power to shut off power plants and things like that. Well, all these power plants that are controlled by computers have software in them. And how easy would it be for someone who knew what they were doing? Obviously, Stephen DeVoe did. He was one of the first programmers to go into IBM and put his code into these machines that control power plants and facilities. And I mean, that's the ultimate power. If you're looking for a project implementation, you embed a secret software into every CNC device around the world. You got a lot of power there. And here's the weird thing about this guy, Stephen DeVoe. Like, a lot of this stuff is, why did he write this comic? If this was a secret plan, why did he give it away? Why, what is this? What was this guy thinking? He loves games. He loves secrets. His biggest kind of obsession is palindromes. Palindromes are words that spell the same thing frontwards and backwards. Race car, RACECAR. Backwards, it's RACECAR. Same. Step on no pets. You go backwards, STEPONNOPETS. Palindromes. This guy, Stephen DeVoe, was a nut for them. All right. So that's good. That's going back. I wrote that stuff. That's information I did research on in 2007 and 2008. And now we're finally talking about embedded computer programs that spy on people. And Stephen DeVoe was one of the very first guys to go in through IBM programs, and the CIA has taken that over. And DeVoe's not a bad guy. He tried to do something secretly to save the United States from the 60s and 70s. And in the 90s, he's pretty much out of what the CIA was doing. Is this a huge conspiracy? Of course, it is a huge conspiracy. It is the biggest conspiracy. Just wait till they admit that computers have been rigging the market since the 1960s. I mean, it blows away what they're talking about. Apple iPhones having secret bugs in them so they can spy on you. This is all happening now. This is the road to Ruta theory being exposed, and it's really exciting on my end. But is it a conspiracy to embed this stuff in an iPhone? Of course, it's unconstitutional to spy on people without permission, and it's completely a scary time for the United States. But the bigger question is, now that it's revealed, who are the winners? Clearly, the CIA is not a winner. They're in deep trouble for doing this. The people are the winners for at least knowing that it's being done, and hopefully everybody will be up in arms about this. Another winner, if you want to think about it, kind of the same people who won in the Y2K issue and problem and fix, is the manufacturers. Everybody's going to want to get rid of their electronic devices and buy something that is not got spyware in it. It's going to be a boom for these manufacturers, even though I think there'll be a lot of lawsuits against them and against the government that it was done to the people to set up these iPhones with spying technology in it, embedded inside the software. Crazy days in the world right now. So yes, everything is getting turned upside down at the exact right time. So what happens in the future? What happens in the future if we know right now that every single thing we plug in is a direct connection to the CIA, from flat screen TVs to microphones to our iPhone to our cars. I even hear there's technology that can listen to you through the electronic sockets in your wall. And I mean, that's scary stuff when we're talking about individual freedoms and liberties. And that's what's getting torn down now. This is not stuff that just happened and it was discovered. This is stuff that's been going on since the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now. So that's what I want to say about the current situation. The world is changing. It's going to change very fast when the exposure of the electronic manipulation of our monetary system gets released, and everybody will be looking at Road to Ruta saying, "Oh my God, Bix Weir was right after all these years." Anyway, go to the website roadtoruta.com, sign up for free emails. You get a free book. There's a picture of the book, Silver, Gold, Bitcoin, and God. It's a PDF book, really cool, about all the issues that we love to talk about. My name is Bix Weir, roadtoruta.com. Subscribe to this video channel. I'm putting a lot of stuff out that has been out there on the Road to Ruta for years, but it is reaching a new audience with YouTube. I'm real excited about that. Thanks a lot.